Good morning, Ravens, and happy Friday. Mr. Meade, your principal, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our grading practices and our standards-based grading system that we use at iTech. There's some changes this year. So those of you who have been in our system before, make sure we're paying attention because there are some things that are going to be a little bit different. But the goal with our standards-based grading system here at iTech is that we want to support you in your learning and allow you to understand what areas you are progressing in and what areas may need a little bit of focus and you're still emerging in, so that you can work to make sure that you grow and have a high level of understanding in all of the standards that we look at. So that's the overall goal, or the why behind our use of standards-based grading, is to make sure that you learn all of the material that is necessary in each of your classes and at each level, so you can progress through our system. So what is standards-based grading? And it may be a little bit different if you're a different school last year. If you were at elementary, they utilize standards-based grading, so it might sound real familiar. But standards-based grading is an approach that we use here at iTech to assess your growth towards proficiency and clearly define skills or outcomes. And what we determine to be essential for those skills or outcomes are from standards. And standards can be Common Core standards. They can be NGSS science standards. There's a lot of different standards that we draw from, but our teachers in their professional learning communities determine for each class what those essential standards are. And then those become what we assess your performance off of. And those are the areas and what we use to develop projects and grow. So a little bit of research behind why standards-based grading is important and effective. It attempts to offer a grade that, number one, communicates meaningful feedback about specific academic proficiencies. Next week, we'll talk about jump rope, and we'll go through a presentation on that, and we'll get your logins and things. But that allows you, that tool, jump rope, allows you to see how you're performing on each standard, so that if there's a standard that needs a little bit of attention and work, you can identify that and put your effort and energy towards increasing your understanding in that area or that standard. It also provides feedback on academic progress exclusively, not compliant behaviors. So when I first started teaching, we would give extra credit for different things that had nothing to do with the learning, that were just about behavior. We have evolved to now we're just looking at that grade should just represent your academic progress. And then compliant behaviors are worked on with systems in your classes, but those are not reflected in your grade. So that's another key point about standards-based grading. The next thing is that it represents a student's mastery of skill over time and multiple attempts. So in our jump rope tool, again, you will see the different attempts that you have made over the course of the semester in relationship to a standard, and it's organized by standard, not by assignment. So within that standard, each attempt or assignment or project or whatever it is listed there, and you will be able to see how you have done over time. It expresses student learning as demonstrated on high quality assessments rather than homework completion or extra credit. So our projects, those larger summative assessments, and not just on homework or work completion. So a few constraints that we have to look at is, one, we are a early college program, and the majority of our students take college classes by the time they're done with us here. And so we also know that a lot of those students are going to be applying to colleges, and colleges accept grades. So we have to have a letter grade. We can't just stop at the standard score level. Also, grades are currency. They get you scholarships. They get you into college, things like that. So we need to have a system that transfers to an A to F fairly and clearly for our students. So at each individual standard level, what we are doing this year, and this is a little bit different, so make sure we're paying attention if you've been in our system before, is each standard needs its own score. So again, in our jump rope tool, each standard will have its own score. That'll be a numerical score somewhere between 0 and 4. We'll use either a Decatur averaged method to determine that standard score this year. In the past, we've done all the 75% decay, which is the most recent attempt is worth the most. That will continue in a lot of cases. And our teachers and their professional learning communities have determined that some of the standards better represent your learning if they are averaged. And so some of your standards may also be averaged in determining that numerical value. And your teachers will let you know which standards are decayed and which standards are averaged. So this is a look at what Jump Rope does for us, our tool that we use to report our grading. But this shows you each of the standards that's being covered, and this is an example from leadership class. Each of the standards that's being covered and what the score is for each of these standards for this student. And so that student can see that in 10A1, set and meeting goals, they're doing very well. They're in the 3 level. And 10A2, prioritizing, planning, and managing work, they're at a 2.1. So that might be an area looking at this that they might want to focus on or talk with their teacher about. And then again, it shows where they are in relation to each of these standards. So that all goes toward their letter grade. But really, the letter grade is just a result of your work in relationship to each of these standards. And so looking at all of your standards and making sure that you are mastering all of those areas and strong in all of those standards is extremely important. And this is a great way, standards-based grading is a great way for you to see that, as opposed to traditionally where you'd get an 85 out of 100 on a project and not necessarily know where those points came off or were awarded to you. So this gives you a very clear look in relationship to the specific standard of where you're at. So then how do we take all of those standard scores that we just looked at and convert them into a letter grade? And this is another change this year that the staff has decided to make. So what we're going to do is that letter grade, which will be at the top right corner when you access Jump Rope next week, that letter grade is going to be determined by averaging all of your standard scores together. So in this case, we would take all of these standards, add them all up, and then divide them by the total number, and that will give us an average score. And that average score will then be representative of a certain band or grade band, but your letter grade will show up in the top right corner. Now, this is how we're going to determine or break down that average. If you have something between 3.26 and 4, that will be an A, something between 3 and 3.25, an A minus, and so on. So all of those scores, again, those numerical values will be added together and then divided by the total number, which will give us an average proficiency scale score, and then it will fall into these grade bands. So that is a new change for this year. A little bit of information just on where we pulled some of this research from, but just want to give you a quick look at our grading practices and how things are going to work and some changes that we have this year. Again, your teachers will be communicating more with you as we go throughout the year, but just wanted to point that out. And again, we'll have another quick video next week where we look at Jump Rope, which is our tool for communicating this to you. You'll get your logins and we'll go through kind of how to use that. So hope you have a great Friday and great weekend, and look forward to seeing you back on Monday. Have a great day, Ravens.